Coming up with campaign ideas can be hard. So I've come up with 5 interesting campaign ideas that I encourage you to use for yourself that are based upon some real life things that we've come across in our travels. So let's go ahead and jump right on into it. Number 1, a world of traveling caravans. Imagine a world where if too many people gather for a long enough period of time, magical creatures come and hunt them down. So the entire world is based upon nomadic travels. So I've lived in an RV for almost 3 years now, traveling the country. We've done 36 states at this point, 42 national parks. And across those travels, it's a community. As you go from place to place to place, you encounter new people and new things. But imagine that if you stayed for too long at any given time, magical creatures would come. All of a sudden, being an adventurer to help people move across, moving in caravans, that entire dynamic becomes interesting. Everything can be the final frontier, the final wasteland, if you will. And that's fun if everything is moving at all times. As a dungeon master, then, you never have to come up with the city. Every caravan is different. Everything could be a random table. It completely changes the dynamic of how we play most TTRPGs. The question is, how do you find these moving cities? It reminds me of the movie with the giant cities on wheels that go from place to place. I don't even remember what it was called. It was that bad. But that's the idea, but just make them moving caravans. Now, everything's changing and everything's dynamic and nothing ever stays the same. Repeating characters now become an exception and not the norm. And your reputation matters more than anything else. The Adventurers Guild that protects these caravans, and it goes into the old society, the old ruined buildings and capital cities everyone stays away from because they're riddled with creatures. Now you literally have a dungeon delving based campaign purely because everything is nomadic. So run with that one. In most campaigns, everything is either post-apocalyptic or pre-apocalyptic. What about a campaign where you are in the middle of the apocalypse? We don't see this very much. And I truly mean the zombie invasion, the undead invasion is occurring, and your players are trying to keep people alive. What we generally have is bastions of hope where people are bunkled down and fighting for one another. What about the Walking Dead style campaign where you have a group of people and you're making your way through an apocalyptic world trying to get to safety, dealing with everything that's happened? Dungeons & Dragons is ripe for this type of game. And Pathfinder is as well. There's so many ways that we can do this, and using our skills and survival skills and actually going into cities that have been completely overrun and scavenging for resources. This Dungeons & Dragons has enough flexibility to allow for you to do this style of gameplay. So I encourage you to try it. Try that. We are entering into the apocalypse. People are being turned. They can be being turned into demons, devils. Nature could be coming out. There could be 1,000 different things. In fact, factions themselves could create a different type of invasion where the prime material world is being overrun by everything as they are taking over the living creatures to fight for the souls because they need them to propagate. Just something random off the top of my head. But it allows for you to have different areas and different things. Or maybe the breach between our world and the next world has gone. So when we die and we leave our body, something else can take it over. It could be earth, it could be elemental energy, it could be necrotic energy, meaning that every time something passes, it leaves a vacant hole where the elemental world, and I say elemental as far as a fire, wind, water, you have necrotic energy, arcane energy, anything that you can think of as an energy can inhabit a body. And so therefore everyone's running and trying to stay alive. The more dense the population, the bigger the problem. So how would you do this? How would you run this campaign? Would you need to map it out ahead of time, or would you come up with it on the fly? Give them a final destination, if you will. So what are your thoughts on that? Another campaign idea that is fantasized, but not done enough, is really The Last Airbender, where you have elemental factions, and those factions have borders and lands, and they're trying to accomplish something. There's so many things you can do with the basic 4 prime elements that we don't see enough of in our tabletop role-playing games. I think about it. I've watched a lot of games where you have elemental wizards, you have elemental mages, you have elements that are there, but nothing where the campaign's core root is in elemental magic. I'm not saying everyone can wield elemental magic, but what about where those are the rulers of the different factions and societies? Where if someone can use fire magic, they're part of the fire kingdom. If someone can use water magic, they're part of the water kingdom. What about a kingdom that's based upon necromantic energy, where all of their labor are skeletons and undead? We don't have to stop at the prime 4 elements. We can look at what happens with light elementals, what happens with necrotic elementals, what happens with pure nature elementals, chaos elementals. And I'm using the word elemental in terms of themes for the society, themes for that group of people. Now, as a player, that makes things more interesting. If you are a fire wizard or fire sorcerer, or maybe you don't prescribe to any of them and you can wield all, which is what makes you unique. How would you use this in terms of a campaign idea? What would the overarching goals be? What would the climactic event be for your players? Or would you run this more as a sandbox style? I love the idea of having these elemental nations, but from a campaign setting, there's nothing that's climactic that's happening, except for maybe that they've been warring for so long that they forgot that the whole reason they exist is to create balance in the world, and the rifts between our world and the elemental world are going to come open. There's a lot of things you can do. When elements are the basis of the campaign, we see a lot of side quests where earth elementals be causing problems, or fire elementals, or water elementals during water sessions. We see that as an encounter, but very rarely do we see it as the basis of a campaign. And there's a lot of resources to draw from. There's a lot of fantasy, even on television, where there are different types of sorcerers and wizards who utilize those magics in everyday society to better them. So what are your thoughts on this? How would you do an elemental campaign? The final campaign idea, which I haven't seen in a long time, is the Lost Frontier, a kingdom which has since collapsed. This is very much Diablo-esque. And what I don't mean by dungeon delving into the depths and trying to defeat Diablo, I mean as in we're on the edge of a frontier that has been forgotten, a kingdom that was destroyed a long time ago. An entire campaign can be written off that. You have lost cities, lost foundries, lost magic, lost everything that people are trying to gain back for their own benefit. But it's dangerous. Why is it dangerous? Why is that kingdom isolated off? Why is that danger not coming onto our kingdom? Who are the factions trying to go in? The idea of a lost kingdom being the foundation, the function of adventurers is fun. Now, that lost kingdom could be on an island. It could be on a wall of mist. There could be 1,000 things separating this world from that lost kingdom, and the mysteries of why it fell are there. It could be one of the most magical kingdoms where the best magic items of the world were found, and now people are trying to go in and find them. In fact, most of what you find on the black market are things that adventurers have rescued from in a kingdom. An entire kingdom that has been lost. And so far, only the very surface, on the very edge of the kingdom, have actually been explored. The real treasures lie deep within the kingdom. How do you get there? Do you have survival checks? Do you actually have to have random encounters? What types of creatures are there? Is the magic running rampant? Why doesn't it go into our world? This campaign idea gives you questions, more questions that you don't have to answer right away. All you have to do is come up with the rumors, the overall arching of why the kingdom fell. The wizards got too greedy, which caused all of its people to be infected by this magic disease, which caused everyone to close their borders. Since there was only a narrow pass through the northern mountains to the kingdom to the north, that pass was since locked away. That was the only way to get there. That pass is now open. And there's a bastion, a city, that your adventurers are part of the exploration party going back into the kingdom for the first time. Very few people have ventured over the mountains and come back with magic items, even the most basic. Things that give off eternal light. Things that are so basic that society used on a regular basis. They used in their everyday. Arcane crystals that actually can power magic items that we struggle to do. We understand magic over here, but not like they did. So I encourage you to use that. Guys, and I hope this helps. I hope you liked these campaign ideas. And as always, like, subscribe, comment, share. And if you want to support us, we are having a whole bunch of new stuff coming up. A free version of Hero Soul that we're working on our Patreon. Any member, including free members, get that. We also have level encounters on our Patreon, as well as Drive-Thru RPG. So levels 1 through 4 that are completely scalable, that are more side quests. We've got those coming out as well. I will be posting those in the comments. And as always, guys, I hope to see you next time.